This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch for Wednesday, December 4th. I'm Charlene Aaron. Today, round two begins in the Democrats' push to impeach President Trump with more hearings in Congress today. But Republicans stand firm, and so far, the country remains divided. President Trump in London for the NATO anniversary as the allies are divided over Turkey's invasion of Syria. And who's winning the war over abortion? The New York Times says the left wing is losing as grassroots conservatives are gaining ground. We'll hear from a leading pro-life advocate. And the U.S. has been hit by numerous small earthquakes, but could they be a blessing in disguise? Those stories and more today on NewsWatch. And we begin with the Democrats' ongoing attempt to impeach President Trump as their investigation enters a new phase today with the House Judiciary Committee holding its first public hearing. 4 legal and constitutional experts take the stand today, called by Democrats, set to discuss the constitutional grounds for drafting articles of impeachment. 3 of the 4 support impeachment. On Tuesday, the House Intelligence Committee voted along party lines to release the Democrats' 300-page report on the investigation into alleged misconduct by President Trump in regard to Ukraine.
This is the result of a president who believes that he is beyond indictment, beyond impeachment, beyond any form of accountability, and indeed above the law.
The Democrats' report accuses the president of putting his own personal interests above national interests and implicates several other top U.S. officials, including Vice President Pence and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. They're accused of being complicit in the president's push to withhold military aid from Ukraine for political purposes. House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy said Democrats are concerned if they don't impeach President Trump, they can't beat him in an election. So far, the Democrats haven't persuaded any Republicans to go along with impeaching the president, and the country remains sharply divided. Well, while the Democrats focus on impeachment, President Trump is in England at the meeting of NATO leaders near London as the alliance celebrates its 70th anniversary. The leaders downplayed their differences today, despite a series of spats between the presidents of some of the biggest members. The infighting is mostly due to Turkey's invasion of northern Syria. Chris Mitchell brings us that story.
Turkey joined NATO in 1952, but recently some like French President Macron wondered whether Turkey should continue to be part of the alliance.
How is it possible to be a member of the alliance, to work with all of us, to buy our materials, to be integrated, and to buy the S-400 from Russians? Technically, it is not possible.
Earlier, Macron said NATO suffered brain death in part because President Trump pulled out of Syria without consulting his NATO allies, and because of Turkey's invasion of northeast Syria.
When I look at Turkey, they now are fighting against those who fight with us, who fought with us, shoulder to shoulder, against ISIS. And sometimes they work with ISIS process. This is an issue, and this is a strategic issue.
Erdogan slammed the French president.
Mr. Macron, I call on you from Turkey. I'll say it at NATO, too. You should get checked whether you are brain dead. Kicking Turkey out of NATO or not, how is that up to you? Do you have the authority to make such a decision?
Many have criticized Erdogan's invasion of northeast Syria, including atrocities like this one, where Turkish-backed soldiers killed 12, including 8 children in a mortar attack. It's why Kurdish protesters took to the streets of London.
NATO is still supporting him. The UK is still selling arms to him. America is still supporting him, and we need help because we don't have any power ourselves.
Some believe Erdogan's strategy is to hold European leaders hostage with the threat of flooding the continent with millions of refugees, while at the same time pursuing his goal of ethnic cleansing along the Turkish-Syrian border. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
The Democratic presidential field is one candidate smaller now that California Senator Kamala Harris has dropped out, announcing her decision in a campaign video, saying she simply didn't have the money to keep going.
I'm not a billionaire. I can't fund my own campaign.
Harris called it one of the hardest decisions of her life. Her campaign started with a great deal of enthusiasm, but she wasn't able to sustain her momentum or fundraising, and her campaign suffered from infighting as she fell far behind the leading candidates in the polls. Former Vice President Joe Biden still leads the Democrats in national polls, but could lose in the early voting states of Iowa and New Hampshire. The winter storm that has brought heavy snow across the country is finally winding down as it traveled through the Northeast, possibly leaving up to 2 feet of snow to parts of Maine. The snow had already led to hundreds of accidents in recent days, and drivers had a hard time being able to stay on the road.
I think it's going to be a really bad winter.
The snow had also delayed hundreds of flights, stranding travelers in airports. First Liberty Institute, which defends religious freedom in legal cases, is calling on the Army to allow Shields of Strength to produce military-themed items like replica dog tags and jewelry. The Army had banned Shields from doing so after it got a complaint from a group called the Military Religious Freedom Foundation. Shields of Strength produces items like these Army antique finished dog tags with language based on a Bible verse on them, Joshua 1:9, which allow people to show their support for the troops. The tag says, "I will be strong and courageous. I will not be afraid. I will not be discouraged." Shields of Strength produces other military-themed items like necklaces that say Army Mom or Army Wife with other verses as well. Coming up, are liberals losing the war over abortion? That's what the New York Times said recently. We'll get the response from one leading pro-life advocate right after this. Stay with us.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
I think as a father, it's my job, to lead. Just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Political news and analysis from Washington on Faith Nation, tonight at 6 Eastern, only on the CBN News Channel.
The New York Times recently wrote that the left is losing the abortion battle, pointing to a drift to more extreme abortion measures. To counter that, it says conservatives and pro-life groups have worked across the nation with grassroots efforts to create stricter laws on abortions and standards in clinics. Our Wendy Griffiths spoke with Catherine Glenn Foster with Americans United for Life about the significance of the Times story and what it all means in the fight for infants in the womb.
Catherine, welcome to the program.
Pleasure to be here.
Well, Catherine, this article on the left losing the abortion battle has drawn attention, especially heading into an election year. Why so much interest?
This article really highlights and amplifies the divisions that we've already known are there. The article talks about everything the the right is doing, that life advocates are doing, that pro-life people, just folks from coast to coast are doing, and in the heartland, to stand for life and to just support women and girls in sometimes difficult situations. And we know what we're doing. We know how we're standing for life and how we're reaching the American public and how we're reaching lawmakers. What we didn't necessarily know was the depth of the division on the left, the depth of the division within the abortion activism movement, with people who, it turns out, are quite divided culturally, financially, politically, and in so many other ways.
Well, we've seen, of course, laws in states like New York legalizing abortion right up until birth, and even attempts at legalizing post-birth. So where does that leave us?
You know, every time a state tries that, every time a state like New York passes a law like that, a Reproductive Health Act, they call it, and they light up the Empire State Building pink, and there's cheering in the streets of New York, you see that, you know, it is such a small fraction of people who actually support that. Because when you look at the polling, you'll see, even with New York, incredible, a double-digit swing in a one-month period from just before that RHA, Reproductive Health Act, passed to just after. And you saw a double-digit swing in the percentage of Americans who considered themselves pro-life. Because, in fact, when you see that that the left is trying to push these radical policies, is trying to push late-term abortion, is trying to push infanticide, just an absolutely horrible, horrific practice. You know, Americans say, well, you know, choice sounds like a nice word. I'd like to consider myself pro-choice, but if that's what pro-choice is, I want no part of that.
Wow. Well, where do the American people actually line up on the abortion issue these days? What are you seeing in the grassroots?
You know, it is incredible, all of the progress that we are seeing. When you look at the polling, you know, people don't necessarily want to call themselves pro-life or pro-choice. You know, both of those terms have gotten a little politically loaded at times. But when you start asking about the facts, when you say, well, you know, do you think that abortion is morally okay? You start seeing people swing and say, you know, no, that just feels wrong. When you start talking about life-affirming options, when you start asking people, do you think that there should be abortions when a child is viable, when a child could survive outside the womb, people say, hang on, that is not what we signed up for. And in fact, we absolutely oppose that. In fact, we did a poll just right after that New York law went into effect, and we found that 80% of Americans and 2/3 even of self-described pro-choice Americans oppose late-term abortions. They say absolutely not. That is a bridge too far. That is not what we signed up for when we thought we were pro-choice.
Well, Catherine, what can we expect from the pro-life movement going forward into 2020, and how can people pray right now?
You know, we are building momentum. Even just this year, we saw incredible results in the states, with 25% more life-affirming bills passed into law than we had even the previous year. We are just building every single year. 58 pro-life bills passed into law. So we are seeing so much progress in the states. We are seeing incredible efforts at the federal level as well. It can be a little bit hard to get those through. As you know, things take a little bit more time there when you're a little bit farther from your constituents, and it can be hard. But we are seeing so much progress at the federal level, and then the Supreme Court. In March of next year, we are going to hear oral arguments on what could be the most important case on abortion since Roe v. Wade. So I would just say pray for your representatives, pray for your senators, and pray for those justices on the court. They have a very big decision ahead of them.
Catherine Glenn Foster with Americans United for Life, thank you so much for your insights and being with us today.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Wendy. Still ahead, you may not be aware of it, but the U.S. has been hit by thousands of small earthquakes in recent years. Are they a warning of a danger to come, or actually a blessing in disguise? We'll explain when we come back.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
The United States has been free of any major earthquakes in recent years, but there have been thousands of smaller ones, and they've been spreading across the nation. Is the ground beneath our feet building up to something catastrophic? Or, as Paul Strand reports, could they be a blessing, saving us from major disaster?
More than 100,000 aftershocks have rumbled California since a 4th of July quake hit the Mojave Desert, followed by a 7.1 the next day.
I mean, everything was moving, the walls were just moving, everything.
In October, 5 large earthquakes shook the Pacific off the Oregon coast. Worrisome since that's home to the Cascadia subduction zone. Important because it could someday unleash what's likely to be America's deadliest natural disaster on everything west of Interstate 5. Scientist Jeff Zwirink at California's Reasons to Believe Institute says it's no surprise there's so much action on the west coast.
You just look around the whole Pacific Ocean. That area is just surrounded by tectonic plates that are moving and sliding over one another.
And while he thinks California is prepared well for its inevitable quakes, 9 out of 10 commercial buildings and 8 out of 10 homes there still have no earthquake insurance.
We're going to have a lot more earthquakes and we're going to have a lot stronger shaking.
Dr. Jones estimates if that Mojave Desert quake had hit LA instead, it might have cost $200 billion in damages. Elsewhere, more than 140 quakes hit Oklahoma just in October. But they may have an interesting origin.
Small-scale earthquakes that it looks like are human-caused. Some of that's related to the way we're drilling for oil down there.
But he doesn't find the swarms of quakes around the U.S. at all surprising.
There's some stuff in the Midwest, Missouri area, the New Madrid Fault. There's obviously stuff along the California coast. These are just places where we expect tectonic activity to happen.
Zwirink says no seismologists can really say whether these swarms will lead to the big one many fear.
As plates move, there's going to be energy built up there. And so in some sense, a whole bunch of small earthquakes may be better than a couple of larger ones, because you kind of dissipate that energy little bits at a time instead of having one big one that releases all the energy.
This man of science and faith says, don't let excessive fear eat you up.
You exaggerate it and say, oh, we're in imminent danger of having this big one that's going to wipe out humanity. Just as a Christian, I see it's best to be aware of what's going on, be adequately prepared and knowledgeable of it, but not make it a bigger deal than it is.
His other recommendation? Do everything FEMA advises in its When the Earth Shakes video, and you should be good to go.
Are your emergency kits packed? What about your family, your friends? Do they know what to do, how to get in touch, and where to meet?
Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
Coming up, he recently traveled to Israel, and following that trip, hip-hop artist Lecrae is working on his next album called Restoration. CBN's Studio 5 got the word first, and we'll have an interview with him right after this.
Yeah, I got that. I dance around because I know it. I move around because I got it.
the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
On the Home Front, Tuesday morning at 10:30.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government.
My focus has been trying to really make sure we have the future leaders we need for the bench and the bar and for society generally.
You'll learn from highly credentialed leaders who are current and former judges, distinguished scholars, and ACLJ counsel.
I'm so glad I chose Regent. The relationships here have been amazing. The faculty have been amazing. Not everybody's called to the same thing when they leave law school, but they're called by a God who has a purpose for their lives, and He is going to use that education to make a difference in the world.
Regent will prepare you to be a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer. To start your rewarding law career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July. Apply today.
It has the power to influence weight loss, boost your immune system, and improve brain function.
We've seen an explosion of data on the role of the gut microbiome in health.
The free Build a Better Gut booklet reveals the latest information about the gut microbiome. You'll discover how your gut affects the rest of your health.
The gut microbiome has been linked to depression and cancer and heart disease.
Learn how to build a stronger, healthier gut.
The microbiome, if it's in good composition, are really protecting us all the time from more invasive things.
Get the Build a Better Gut booklet, free from the Christian Broadcasting Network. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut.
You need to make sure that your microbes are working with you, not against you.
And if you order online, you'll get immediate access to the Build a Better Gut series, a digital copy of the booklet, and related bonus material. Build a Better Gut today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut for your free copy.
Hip-hop artist Lecrae, following his recent trip to Israel, is currently working on his next album titled Restoration. He broke the news on our Studio 5 program on the CBN News Channel in an exclusive interview. Take a look.
What up, Southeast? They gon' raise me to be a little beast. Caught a couple faves in the streets. Played on the beach. Playing records with my Uncle Keith. I hit a fam off for the beats. I roll it down Imperial. Old school in my stereo. From Skyline, you don't hear me though. I took a road trip to Long Beach. Hit the wrong street and they bang on you. But I'm good, I know Mosky.
Lecrae, so many things to talk to you about. New music coming?
Absolutely.
How soon? What can you share?
I've been working on it pretty tirelessly for a while now, and I think, you know, the crock pot is just about done cooking. So I'm excited to, you know, I would like to see something out by the end of the year. If not, definitely the top of the year. But I've been growing a scruff on my face just as a symbol of hard work. I've been working. Clean cut Lecrae, that means the album is ready.
All right. And it's called Restoration?
Yeah, so the album is called Restoration, and you know, the story around that is just, man, I've really truly been restored. God has done some restorative work in my life over the last few years, and I've gone through a lot of turmoil and pain behind the scenes, and people, you know, they know some of it, but they don't know how it truly affected me and my family, and so a lot of that will be shown, and just people will be able to see, you know, that some relationships have been restored, some perspective has been restored, and my faith has definitely been restored.
I don't know, it's almost like I'm connecting with people that society has forgotten about.
So for me, it's a passion. You know, there's a community that I feel connected to that just is in prison. I grew up visiting my uncles in prison, and my dad was in and out of, you know, jail. And so for me, I guess it's realizing these are people, you know what I mean? These are people that need love and need encouragement, and that the world kind of forgets about. God still loves them, so do I.
You took a trip to the Holy Land during this time as well. What was that like?
was phenomenal. It was like the cap off of the restoration process, honestly. Just to be able to walk into places where, these biblical characters walk, to see David's temple and his dwelling place, to see the garden tomb where it's believed Jesus resurrected. That kind of stuff just invigorates and re-energizes your faith in a way that I can't even explain. So the Bible will never be the same for me. And it was a beautiful experience. I literally had no words.
Say you gon' fight, you ain't try, you don't lie right. Send a prayer up, go a line, you don't find time. Down yet, homie, down yet. Pick me up off the ground, yeah. Almost drawn, yeah. Put me on, yeah. Sheesh. Wasn't in my right mind. Yeah. Reach out for me like a lifeline. I've been with you so long, it feel like a lifetime. So connected to you, I could be your Wi-Fi. I was a fight, left hook right across just and right. Out my way, class feel too late. Lose my faith, I lose my life. I've been lost and feeling lonely. Tell them they can't hold me. Looking in the mirror like, when you fight for me, fight for me.
One more thing before I let you go. Your book was one of those that when I closed the last chapter, I was like wanting more, and I understand you're going to deliver.
Yeah, I do have another book in the works. It should come out next year as well. And I definitely felt like there was some lessons that I've learned and some things that people need to process. And so I want to take people through a healing journey, healing from relational battles, political battles, racial battles, economic battles. How do you heal from these types of things, and what does that look like for me? And so that's kind of the premise of this book, and hopefully it'll be a blessing for anybody and everybody who reads it.
No, Lecrae, thank you for your time. Thank you for your obedience to the call. You truly are a blessing, many, including myself. Thank you.
God bless you as well. Thank you so much.
There is much more tonight on Studio 5, including Ephraim's interview with the real-life journalist whose story plays a key role in the new Tom Hanks movie about Mr. Rogers, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, and his conversation with the famed civil rights attorney Brian Stevenson, whose story will also be told in an upcoming film, Just Mercy. You can see Studio 5 only on the CBN News Channel tonight at 9:30 Eastern. And that is it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen by emailing newswatch@cbn.com or talk to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.